This morning about an engagement I had a few years ago out in Wyoming with a mining operation. Now they had me out there to speak to all three of their shifts. There were 3-shift operation, and so they brought me in at 5 a.m. to speak from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. to the 3rd shift supervisors. If you want to talk about a challenge, a training challenge, that was a training challenge. So what do we have? We had what I call training bait available. In other words, big boxes of confections, donuts. There was a large contingency of Hispanic employees that worked at this particular mine. And one of the employees was a custodial person, and I saw on his shirt that his name was Tomas. And so he walked in and he was starting to clean up. I said, "Hola, Tomas." He goes, "Oh, senor, you speak Spanish." I go, "No, hola is as far as I go. But good morning, how are you?" And he smiled and he said, "Very well, thank you, nice to see you." I said, "Tomas, would you like to have a donut?" He goes, "Well, sure." And so he went and enjoyed a donut. Well, in the meantime, I walked down the hallway to take a restroom break. I was gone maybe 5 minutes. When I came back into the room, as I'm walking up the hallway, I hear Tomas speaking to another person. There wasn't another person when I left, so someone had joined the conversation. I walked in and there was another gentleman. Well, I immediately spoke, "Good morning." And he spoke, but he did not speak as much English. I could tell that immediately, and he had a very heavy accent. I walked up and I extended my hand. This was the good old days when we could literally shake hands with people. I, for one, am looking forward to getting back to those days. But I extended my hand, he took my hand. Now, Tomas is standing here, I'm looking at the gentleman. I said, "My name is Phillip." He smiled and he told me his name as we're still shaking hands. And I didn't get it. It just, the accent, it was an unfamiliar word, I don't know, I just didn't capture it. And I said, "I'm sorry, can you tell me again?" And he said his name the second time, and I still didn't get it. Now I'm starting to panic a little bit. Maybe you can relate to this. We're still in contact, physical contact with one another, gripping one another's hands, and I have not yet been able to call him by his name. And I said, "I am so sorry." And at that moment in time, Tomas reaches over and takes the gentleman's head, literally turns his head profile to me. He had a helmet on, as most miners have, and stenciled on that helmet was this gentleman's name. Eusebia. And I'm reading it, it's unfamiliar, and I went, "Eusebia?" And he went, "Eusebia!" And it startled me. It was almost like touchdown. And I step back. Tomas starts laughing. Eusebia starts laughing, and I start laughing. It was kind of an interesting moment, one I had not expected. It wasn't a big deal, but it was noteworthy. An hour or so later, when the second group, the 1st shift supervisors, came in for their training, I was still thinking about this encounter. And so I decided to start the engagement, the training session, by telling them this story. And I sort of built it up, of course. I didn't tell him who it was until I got to the point where Tomas had turned the head, and I said, and I read E-U-S, and I spelled out the name. And then I said, "Eusebia." And one of the guys on the front row said, "Oh, none of us can pronounce that name, we just call him Chuck." And I went, okay, there it is. Why was Eusebia so excited to hear his name called? Because most of his supervisory inspirations, his managers, supervisors in this organization, took the easy route. They were less sensitive to his needs and more sensitive to their own. "Oh, that's difficult, it's hard for me to understand, it's hard for me to say it, so I just give him a nickname. I'll call him whatever I want." The best leaders understand that employees, followers are watching. And if that leader does not make the effort necessary to acknowledge and be sensitive to the needs of the follower, even something as simple as the correct pronunciation of their names, then quite frankly, we may have committed an unpardonable sin in that very moment.